Welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. You're all very welcome to today's session, which is Changemakers Working to End Stigma, Exclusion and Harmful Practices in SRHR. So today we have interpretation in Spanish and English. So please choose the language that you wish to listen to the session to using the little globe icon at the bottom of your screen, as we will have presenters in both languages. We're also live on Wordly if you want to have live subtitles in any other languages. So just click the Live on Custom live streaming service at the top of your screen if you want to use that. Yeah, feel free to get involved on social media. The hashtag is hashtag Ubuntu Symposium or hashtag Symposio Ubuntu. So yeah, please feel free to share something on social media. So yeah, today we're going to hear from our SRHR Changemakers from what they've been up to for the last 2 years. I'll just give you a little bit of background to the project. So MenEngage has been working on a project on SRHR for the last 2 years or so. And the project aims to challenge the stigma and discrimination that undermines the fulfillment of sexual and reproductive health and rights throughout the world. And to do that through engaging men and boys in key SRHR issues. A central part of this project has been engaging a group of 24 young activists from around the world as changemakers. You can see some of them here from back when we were able to see each other face to face and some of the meetings that we had together, which we unfortunately haven't been able to do this year. But each group of changemakers kind of worked together as a region over the last 2 years and identified a particular area of SRHR that they found was particularly relevant in their local context and has been working on a regional level project. So today we're going to hear from them. We're going to hear what they've been doing, what some of the challenges they've faced, lessons that they've learned. And yeah, so we're going to hear from each region individually at first, and then we're going to have time at the end to kind of allow the changemakers to respond to each other's presentations and also to have some questions from the audience. So please, if you have a question, leave it in the chat box or just share some thoughts and opinions on what's being presented, get involved in the discussion. Yeah, that's it for me. I'm going to hand over to the changemakers as you're who we want to hear from today. So we're going to start with South Asia. And first up, we have Rahman from Bangladesh. We're going to hear from Sohan from Bangladesh, Neeti from India, Inam Ul from Pakistan, Dushama Attanyake from Sri Lanka, and who am I missing? Suvecha Rana from Nepal. So over to you, Sohan. I'm going to get your presentation up in a minute, but please feel free to just go ahead.
Okay. So thank you, Shinit, for giving this opportunity to present Bangladeshi work on SRHR for all to enhancing services for young people. So can you share the presentation?
Yeah, I'm working on it. Just keep going and I'll have it in a second.
So welcome again from Bangladesh. So next slide, please, Shinit. Okay, in first slide from Bangladesh, it's totally shadow pandemic in Bangladesh, and in January to October last year, 583 women were raped and 198 of women was subject to gang rape, and 25 were murdered and 22 committed suicide. So young people, especially young feminist group, are very active to defy this shadow pandemic in Bangladesh. So engaging men and boys to SRHR, so it is a possible solution to this violence reduction. So next one, Shinit. So SRHR for all project and during pandemic situation, so we adopted a new mechanism. It's totally digital interaction, and we mobilized 127 youth including 10 transgender and 8 indigenous youth from 34 districts from Bangladesh, and we arranged 18 online training on child marriage, on masculinity issues, caring masculinity, advocacy strategy, and we also reviewed our country's existing policies, laws, and national action plan. So next one, please. So after the mobilization and training, we conducted 111 online dialogue at the grassroots or district level. By this local level advocacy, we involved 2,430 men and boys in this consultation. So after this consultation and national desk review, we organized a virtual press conference in the national level, and 30 media houses attended this press conference. So after this press conference, it's create a momentum for engaging men and voice to SRHR and ending child marriage issues in Bangladesh. So that after that we invited parliamentarians, all party parliamentary group, and 6 parliamentarians joined here, and the parliamentarians also expressed solidarity with this issue, and they are very interested to discuss in parliament or for needed a policy reformation to engaging more men and voice to preventing gender-based violence or child marriage by enhancing youth-friendly services. And we also invited a high-level official from different ministries, from 5 ministries, and 6 government official was joined there, here, and they welcomed our recommendation and they applauded our recommendation. It's very time-friendly and it's very needful. And then we developed 6 messages and an illustration. So it reached 50,000 people in social media. So in COVID time, we use all digital opportunity to on SRHR all project. Next one. So now I am sharing today's topic and also our recommendation from Bangladesh. So we recommended to our national government for develop a specific program and policies around the active engagement of father, because they are key decision maker to preventing child marriage and ensuring SRHR access for all, not only for men or women, including all gender diversity group, indigenous people with different gender identities, and also develop clear and specific guidelines within existing child marriage provision policies to engage fathers and preventing child marriage. And next one is a reform existing rape law to make the definition of rape gender. So Bangladeshi law only taking women and girls, but they are not taking other gender identities like trans or boys. So we demand to reform rape law to including all gender identities. And last one is SRHR for all to indigenous and ethnic minority communities with Bangladesh based in specific needs and requirement. And next one, please. So here some comments from parliamentarians, and they welcomed our all recommendation, and they are very interested to share this recommendation in parliamentary discussion. Next one, please. So now I'm sharing the impact. So this developing leadership and capacity has enhanced to engaging men in dialogue by our digital local level discussion, and its immense potential in mobilizing young people, a big group we engaged through this project. And also practicing inclusion leads to success, like we included person with disabilities, we included transgender communities, we included a big number of indigenous communities. So inclusion was one of the key to success of our project. And also policymakers are respective to young people's demands, and also online model of program implementation can be a cost effective and impactful, because we in short term with a small budget we create a big impact for Bangladesh, and with a momentum, time-friendly momentum. So another one was volunteerism opens up new model with collaboration change. So way forward is needed to continue advocacy with policymaker, influential leaders, social influencer regarding the provide more messaging on caring masculinity, positive fatherhood, parenthood, and responsibilities of father and men. And future programming should focus on utilizing digital platform in COVID era to engage in social media campaign that can target messaging on positive masculinity. And last one is this platform can act as important source of advocacy and development of youth-led movement, and we also cross movement building opportunity around SRHR access through this caring masculinity. And last one, my slide is thank you to all from Bangladesh SRHR for all team. Thank you. Over to you, Shinit. Shinit, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Is that you, Neeti? Go ahead.
So I'll take over here from Sohanur. I'm Suveksha Rana. I'm also a SRHR Changemaker from Nepal. And Sini, request you to share my presentation, please. So I would like to first analyze the COVID-19 and youth SRHR issues in Nepal. So among the youth identified issues of COVID-19 and youth SRHR in Nepal, the first we talked about was compromise on privacy. The lockdown obviously brought down families together, which is a very good thing, but young people were pushed to compromise privacy while living under the same roof, because in Nepal, it's not a common norm to discuss, express the SRHR needs to their parents or guardian. Another point is family planning and contraceptive use. The family planning services observed a decline in users. That is definitely due to restriction in mobility regarding service availability and fear of pandemic. There was also some groups who reported they experienced hike in price on family planning and contraceptive use. And another point is comprehensive sexual education. Now here the school curriculum and peer education program, that are run by various youth serving organizations are a major source of sexuality education. But since all educational institutions closed down and majority of students were staying at home, the only medium they had for learning was distance learning. And this CSE was not prioritized in these distance learning sessions. Similarly, safe motherhood and reproductive health services. The youth also shared that the effort and resources were invested towards control of COVID-19 infection, and there was a decline in provision of quality maternity health services. And safe abortion, similarly, abortion care is a time-sensitive service, and due to no restriction in movement and priority for COVID-19 cases, providing safe abortion services timely and adequately became a challenge. Menstrual health, also procuring products to maintain menstrual hygiene itself was a challenge. And though there was a guideline to provide sanitary pads at quarantine and holding centers, this was not implemented properly. Next, please. These are different voices from the youth, as you can see, regarding product availability, regarding delivery during lockdown, the challenges faced, and for pregnant women during doing the ultrasound. These were some voices that we collected from youth through different medium. Next, please. So after that, like SRHR Changemakers in Action, what we did during this project period in Nepal was we had a training on dignified menstruation, which was we conducted in Sindhupalchok district in Nepal, and that was provided to 21 teachers, where we realized that most of the teachers who were teaching health education were males, and they found it very difficult to discuss menstrual hygiene with female students. So the training focused on sensitizing these teachers and school management committee, after which we also formed girls group to advocate on the need to update the infrastructure in the schools to ease the difficulties faced by menstruating girls during period at school. And we also discussed some teachers' role in doing away with traditional mindset and superstition related to menstruation. Next, please. And then we also had a generation equality youth training. We identified other change makers. We identified 24 youth change makers within Nepal, and we designed a long course with 12 modules. So among the different modules, one separate module was on sexual and reproductive health sites. So this was a 3-month-long course, and the session included the young feminists, including boys, with information on international instruments on SRHR, and also discussed on the need of comprehensive sexual education. And the module also talked about the state of sexual and reproductive health issues during COVID. Next, please. Besides that, we had a youth webinar series once in every 2 weeks, and we also conducted one on SRHR issues. So 4 youth speakers shared their personal experience on coping with stress and adjustment, and also shared their experience of sexual abuse they faced during childhood. Next, please. besides that, we had different awareness sessions for adolescent boys and girls. Adolescent youth girl champion were mobilized to address the issue of SRHR and CSC, published and distributed a booklet on SRHR, and these were all done within the MenEngage Alliance, which CWIN is the secretariat. So a national panel discussion was also participated by over 300 adolescent girls. Orientation program on SRHR was given to our orientation to all girls district chapter of CWIN, and district and national level consultation were done on addressing child marriage and SRHR issues. And also life skilling training provided to adults, integrated the SRHR issue was integrated in all this. Thank you. And next, please. Yeah. So from our different youth webinar, from different training programs, from different consultations, we came up with this recommendation that we need to recognize that the need of SRHR services for young people is heightened at the time of crisis, and ensure uninterrupted availability and access of SRHR services at crisis situation, and enhance youth engagement in strategy formulation and implementation, and recognize and strategize intervention directed towards the marginalized and vulnerable young people, and ensure zero tolerance to violence and discrimination. And also, when we did that training, when those 24 youths were selected from all over Nepal, we made sure that we had a very inclusive group with a member from disability group and also from the LGBTI community, including intersex community. And the way forward, final, thank you. Next, please. So these 24 feminist youth change makers were groomed to take the BPFA frame, which includes SRHR issue also. And we are also partnering with Youth Council and Cricket Association of Nepal on raising awareness on SRHR issues. And the power of social media for raising awareness and advocacy, we are leveraging on that and mobilizing media for mass sensitization on the issue of SRHR. Thank you so much. And I pass on to India. Neeti from India, please.
Hello, everyone. SRHR objective of the intervention in India, community intervention through training programs, awareness and advocacy to address the issues related to gender-based violation, domestic violation, child and forced marriage, menstrual hygiene and health, sexual and reproductive right and health. Sexual and reproductive right, and all the targeted stakeholder and community in the larger in India. Activities, advocacy and awareness program in India. Around 17 programs have been organized on various issues related to the gender-based violation of domestic violence, POCSO, early and forced marriage, child, gender equality, responsible campaign, couple campaign, etc. To aware people and to make the rural community form more gender equal. Total 1,057 stakeholders have been reached, including men, women, and youth, adolescents. Training with youths. In 13 college training programs have been organized with the youth to make them awareness about rights, responsibility, also about also about various gender-related violence, nature of the forced marriage, law related. Total 1,147 boys and girls have been reached in the due course. Celebration days. Via Menstrual Hygiene Day, International Day of the Child and Girl Child Day, 16 days campaign, Human Rights Day, International Women's Day, awareness, advocacy, sanitization, knowledge building, advocacy, sanitization and knowledge building has been done by the information of the Human Chain Rally, signature campaign, candle lights march, where around 1,300 people participated. FGD on menstrual health, and also the gender-based law. Total stakeholder reached were 2,800 people. Work done during COVID-19. Six online training programs have been organized in connection with the YP Foundation to train the stakeholder of sexual and reproductive health and rights, menstrual health, hygiene, and importance of the sanitization, contraceptive, and one government scheme in Rashtriya Kishore Swasthya Karyakram and STI and HIV for making the stakeholders, adolescent and youth of the concept my body, my rights. Relief work was also done during lockdown period, where along with food ration kits, sanitary napkins have been provided to the women. Total outreach was 617 stakeholders, 617 stakeholders. Overall impact in the duration of the program, May 2029 to December 2020, by training and workshop to generate awareness on SRHR, menstrual health and hygiene, gender and domestic violence issues, women rights, and deeper understanding on SRHR was organized. The aim was the create more gender of the knowledge building of men and boys, along with the empowerment of women and girls too. Access to equality health care services and prepare knowledge discrimination. Thank you. Over to Sri Lanka.
Hello everyone.
I think it's Pakistan, India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka.
It's Pakistan, right?
Sorry.
It's okay.
Welcome everybody from Pakistan, and this is Inam Ul from Pakistan, and I'm here to present of project activities of early and forced marriage project in Pakistan. Please, next slide. Okay, MenEngage Alliance Pakistan has been working on the GBV issues and their redressal since 2007, and all of the members have been engaged in various activities on GBV, including early and forced marriage in over 16 districts of Pakistan. The SRHR Changemaker project by MenEngage Alliance Global has been able to further Pakistan Alliance agenda on CEFM. So in fact, this has been an opportunity to further enhance our community mobilization, research, and advocacy agenda as per the strategic plan. Please, next. Okay, project activities. Okay, desk review. To begin with, the desk review of the situation in Pakistan was undertaken so that all of our action could be informed by evidence on the ground. The desk review undertook a gap analysis of all existing legislation at the national and provincial level and identified the areas of effective interventions. Next, please. Advocacy. Occupied with the knowledge, the project began community mobilization and advocacy activities. Over 15 parliamentarians were lobbied with who promised to support and suggested change in legislation. The Ministry of Human Rights, National Commission of the Status of Women, and the Chair of Women Parliamentarian at the national level were engaged with all the stakeholders, met with the agree to initiate some level of action on supporting legislation efforts for prevention of child marriage. Next, please. Okay, community mobilizing. The project activities was supplemented through the funds available on the MenEngage Pakistan. Advocacy was taken through media partner Hum TV and 4 TV programs on early and forced marriage were presented to viewers in Pakistan. The speaker included Ministry of State parliamentarians, including the chair of South Asian Women Parliamentarian Group and CSO activities. The program attracted over a million viewership and 20,000 engagement in social media. 6 webinars were organized on GBV and child marriages supported by the regional alliance, attended by over 500 people directly and viewed later by 25,000 people from the globe. Creative expressions such as art exhibition of young artist work, painting, sculpture, design was organized at the national level of widely covered by the print media. The struggle continued as in Pakistan, COVID situation was reportedly increased the incidence of child marriage as the both families can avoid spending on the 100 people by both sides. They are all still looking in legislation, particularly on the age of marriage, which has been used as a political and religious issues. Next, please. Thank you. Thank you. This is from my side. Thank you.
Great. I think we have Sri Lanka next.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm going to present next. As a South Asian country, Sri Lankan culture has Okay. Sri Lankan culture has social norms that revolve around harmful masculinity. So MenEngage SRHR Sri Lanka works to stop this stigma, exclusion, and harmful practices in sexual and reproductive health and rights. Mainly, Changemakers in Sri Lanka works towards to end these harmful norms with the project named Stop Early and Forced Marriages in Sri Lanka under the project SRHR for All. If I'm giving a small review about background of Sri Lanka. So in 2019, MenEngage SRHR Sri Lanka done a literature review on this particular issue, child marriages and forced marriages. Based on this desk review, and we also done a Facebook survey from our Facebook page, Stop Early and Forced Marriages. We got a few observations in Sri Lanka in contemporary situation. Estimated between 16,000 and 24,000 children were either married or are cohabiting right now. And I should mention about the Muslim Marriage and Divorce Act, which is the personal law establishing in Sri Lanka that marriage involving a girl under 12 requires a special permission from an Islamic magistrate, a quasi name, who is always a male. And also there's cases about inevitable marginalization in the households, gender-based discrimination, and also about cases of intimate partner violence. Next slide, please. Okay, if I'm going to talk about the role of men in family, so according to our Facebook survey, 62% of respondents gave their answer as father is the decision maker in a family when comes the topic of marriage. And also 19% of respondents believe there is no minimum age of legal age for marriage in Sri Lankan society. In our project activities, can we, next slide, please. In our project activities, and which was ended and the goes on right now, we have done a capacity building training sessions regarding on meaningful relationship, legal backgrounds, about intimate partner violence, and also the emotional harassment in relationships. And also we have done a few district trainings which basically happened in Kandy, Kilnochchi in Sri Lanka. But we tackled around male engagement mostly and about positive fatherhood. And also we have done these district trainings for service providers, interest parties, and civil society organization members. And also we have worked with International Youth Alliance for Family Planning and with Equity Sri Lanka. We have done a youth camps for young boys and participating men. And also now currently we are conducting social media based campaigns while engaging youth-led organization, LGBTIQ community organization, and also women's rights organization. Currently, we have built up a youth network with more than 500 volunteer change makers in our project. Next slide, please. Okay, so I should mention about that project Equal Partners. The project Equal Partners about changing how engaging men and boys for change. This project conducting partnered with United National Development Program, National Committee of Ministry of Women and Child Affairs in Sri Lanka, and MenEngage Alliance Sri Lanka. So we have launched 12 videos in English and 2 local languages. This video is about how loving father, loving husband, and loving son. These discussions has took place in national television channel in Sri Lanka, and it telecasted in 5 weeks, and generated a discussion about how men roles in family. Next slide, please. And also, I should mention about the currently Sri Lankan advocacy. We have an advocacy plan on to stop early and forced marriages in Sri Lanka. So, based on the desk review, we have done campaigns, and also we are organizing meeting with partner organization, as I mentioned earlier, youth-led organization, women's rights organization, and LGBTIQ organization, and also we are advocating to stop these stigma and collaborating with high level parliamentarians. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm going to give a few recommendations based on our project progress, we have developed a school curriculum on particular topics to include in school education system in secondary level mostly, and also mainly stop early and forced marriages project supports in amending the act I mentioned earlier, Muslim Marriage and Divorce Act, accordingly, and allow Muslim nationals to marry under the provisions of general law of the minimum age of limit to marriage. And also the trainings that we are conducting as capacity building trainings organized based on territories that identified as threatened areas of high rates of child marriages. And also the programs revolve around with the recommendations that done by desk review, which observed with Sri Lankan situation. Also, I should mention about future campaigns will be more focused on father-daughter relationship, positive fatherhood, and influencing male engagement into gender justice. And I should say, finally, to conclude my session, we are currently mobilizing more than 500 change makers through partnerships, advocating, and social media is upcoming a huge goal. Sri Lankan change makers going to achieve at the end of the project. We can mobilize more than 500 change makers. Thank you.
Thank you, Dushama. In concluding, from South Asian countries to defy stigma and harmful practice in South Asia, we mobilized young people, we reviewed our country's policies and programs, engaged and consulted with local communities. So it's create a momentum for South Asian country, but we have not conducted our South Asian regional advocacy due to COVID-19. But Nepal has not received their funding for SRHR for all. So with this fund, we will compile all each country's national review report in South Asian report. So then we will invite our East countries, ministries, key focal point and parliamentarians to run regional advocacy with the regional institution. And the South Asian cooperation will continue this process, and we will nurture this partnership, this movement towards a gender equal society. Thank you, and Shinit, over to you.
Great, thank you, Sohan, and thank you to everyone from South Asia. It's so impressive to see what you've managed to do in your region, despite obvious challenges with COVID, kind of from research to community mobilization to campaigns to direct advocacy. You've managed to do so much, and I love that you've been able to manage to mobilize so many other young change makers through the project. I know we don't have lots of time, but I know some of you have to go, so it'd be great to hear from, well, whoever wants to answer from South Asia. I'd be really interested to know kind of what has participating in the project been like for you personally, and what do you think you've learned about SRHR through the project? And that's, directed at anyone who wants to answer from South Asia.
Sinead, should I come in?
Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Samita, the regional coordinator for MenEngage South Asia. I would like to say a word here because I have been working with this amazing group of young people for the last 1.5 years. And, they have been quite passionate about the subject. And it's like, I think what they have quite learned is it's a very challenging issue. And for certain countries, it's had been even more challenging. But I think they have broken those barriers. And they have been kind of, talking to their communities, their peers, their young changemaker circles, and engaging boys into this discussion, and also engaging men from their communities. I think from my point of view, I think they have taken a lot of effort and taken a lot of passion and learned that the change can happen. So that is the most important thing, and that is what they have always communicated to me as the regional coordinator. So I'll stop here. Thank you so much.
That's great to hear. Would any of the changemakers like to add anything to that before we move on? Any other reflections on the experience?
Yes, I would like to add a few things, like, organizing other change makers in this journey was quite a challenge during COVID. So because for Nepal, it was also a challenge to getting funds and organizing. But somehow with MenEngage Alliance partners in Nepal, we managed to collect a youth voice on this issue, and then work together further also, because now the project has come to an end. But we are very committed to taking this flame forward and working for SRHR issues continuously. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. Okay, so I think then we should move on to the Caribbean region. And from the Caribbean region today, we have presenting Tricia Basdeo from Trinidad and Tobago. We have Shakey Cornwall joining us from Grenada, and Daryl George from Antigua and Barbuda. And I'll get your presentation up now in a second, but please just go ahead and share a little bit about what you've been up to for the last 2 years.
Sure, I'll let Tricia and Shakey go first.
Good morning, everyone. While the presentation comes up, we're happy to be here on behalf of the Caribbean, also on behalf of one of our colleagues who's not here as well, Ajani from Grenada. It's so nice to connect with everyone, all of our fellow change makers from across the globe, and to see so many new people on the call. Just excited to hear what we have been doing for so long. Thank you. Daryl, you can take over.
Sure, no problem. So first, I'd like to just again thank everyone for being on this call, and I can give you a bit of a background on CariMAN and the work that we do. You can go to the next slide, Sinead. So CariMAN is the regional representative of the MenEngage Global Alliance in the Caribbean, English-speaking Caribbean. And CariMAN is a regional network of individuals and organizations in the Caribbean region working on transforming masculinities and engaging men and boys to promote gender equality. So 4 change makers from CariMAN were selected, and these were myself, Ajani Benoit, Shakey Cornwall, and Tricia Basdeo. And you can go to the next slide. So the Caribbean region is made up of a number of relatively small countries. The majority of them are island countries, but there are one or two, including Belize and Guyana, who are on the mainland. But we have a few similarities, one of which we are all English speaking. And Tricia will give you an overview of the desk review that we would have conducted, a situational analysis of engaging men and boys for SRHR in the Caribbean. And this desk review was basically undertaken primarily because we felt data and gathering data was extremely important. Tricia?
Thank you so much, Daryl. So I'm gonna share the preliminary findings from situational analysis of engaging men and boys for SRHR in the Caribbean. And this is just the preliminary findings. And mostly because we started off this project with 4 countries, and this would have been the 4 countries that the Changemakers are all situated in, with the addition of Jamaica. However, because of the challenges with COVID and some of our plans for regional movement, we decided, which would then go on pause, we decided that we wanted to expand the desk review. So the desk review report now spans 10 countries, and all of the countries, these are all of the countries that CariMAN has local chapters in, and a couple of them, 2 or 3 of them are countries where, in which we hope to have country chapters administered very soon. So you would see from the map, the country spans 10 countries, the report, so we have Antigua and Barbuda, Dominica, Barbados, Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Jamaica, the Bahamas, and Belize. Yeah, next slide. This study was developed using 2 priority areas from the bigger SRHR for all project, and this would have been access to services, particularly around contraception, HIV services. Also, we looked at briefly cancer as well, cancer treatments as well, and the stats around that, as well as comprehensive sexuality education. The study took primarily, it was a qualitative desk review study. However, we did complement it with contributions being key informant interviews with several key stakeholders from civil society organizations across the network members, as well as other civil society organizations who have been doing incredible work in the region. Next slide. So using the studies grounded in a feminist-informed, gender transformative approach, we also chose to use the socio-ecological model, which really allowed us to focus on the evaluation of state and policy provisions, a mapping of the service providers at the community level that combines both clinical and non-clinical services for men and boys, even at the individual levels, in which we looked at the norms, behaviors, etc. around SRHR. Next slide. The report is a huge one. Of course, we cannot present everything, but we wanted to just, and because we're in the final stage of making this a report so we can disseminate, we wanted to just share how the report sort of was dissected. So part 1 of the report focused on the national SRHR policies, legislative frameworks, service provisions at the state level, but also CSO levels for each of the 10 countries. So it was a critical mapping. We also looked at, we did a scan. Part 2 of the report kind of provided a scan of those organizations who support or who work with men and boys for SRHR, both at the regional and the international levels. Part 3 looked at the emerging promising practices for SRHR in the region. And what we did here, we selected, this section of the report really kind of went back into the sociological model. So we looked at the CSO level, the state level, and the individual level, and we kind of pulled out promising practices across each of those levels as well. So, and here, part 3 is where we really were able to kind of incorporate the key informant interviews to get their experiences as well. And lastly, part 4 offered us this opportunity to really provide a strategic mapping of the barriers to access an SRHR in our region across the 10 countries, and again, using the socio-ecological model. The study in general, the last section, really provides recommendations for future work, which will assist CariMAN on a whole with their strategic planning as well. And the next slide. So the last slide on this part of the presentation kind of just summarizes the key findings for this report. And for all of the countries, we found that gender norms and male stereotypes provides challenges for men accessing SRHR. We also felt that there's a lack of comprehensive sexuality education across the region as well. It's not listed here, but when we looked at the national development, so we looked at national gender policies for those countries that had gender policies, but we also looked at the national development plans for each of those countries. And what we found is that while countries had gender policies, or while they have gender policies in the making, and while all of the countries were signed on to international commitments around SRHR and gender equality, their national development planning and policies were lacking in SRHR for all. That's across the board as well. So I'll move over now to the next slide, Shakey. Sorry, Daryl.
Sure. So thank you for giving that overview of the desk review. So another activity that the Caribbean Changemakers engaged in was the creation of a gender transformative engagement toolkit. So we know that here in the Caribbean, there are a lot of organizations who do a lot of gender work, and a lot of it is on somewhat of an ad hoc basis in terms of the way that they structure their engagement with men and boys. So what we wanted to do was create a toolkit that would really help community-based organizations, NGOs, CSOs to be able to have a better format to address these issues and to address gender issues in working with men and boys. So we use specifically a gender transformative methodology. We use evidence-based frameworks. We use feminist frameworks, and we try to ensure that the toolkit was relevant to a Caribbean context so that persons can easily be able to relate to working with men and boys. So the toolkit has been completed, but we're just finalizing the design of the toolkit. So as soon as that has been done, we will definitely share it with the rest of the group. So another activity that we undertook was also a social media advocacy campaign during the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. So we would have worked with another agency here in the Caribbean, which is Grenada, who is an advocate for sexual and reproductive health and rights. And we would have come up with a number of slogans, and we would have shared these on our social media channels. And we would have also posted the posts. So in addition to these very eye-catching graphics, we would have also had additional information, as well as sometimes links to additional resources, so that persons could also get additional information on these topics. So we would have spoken about access to sexual and reproductive health services. We would have looked at doing things such as gender-based violence, and as well as being allies against gender-based violence. We would have looked at the whole issue of the LGBTQI and how persons can become allies to that entire movement. So we examined a number of different aspects, including SRH, but also outside of SRH, looking at gendered and gender-related issues. And now I will turn back over to Shakey and Tricia.
All right, thank you, Daryl. As it relates to the work in progress, it's important for us to understand that for the change makers, it meant that, you know, we had to locate ourselves coming in to the CariMAN's space and making sure that we kind of create an opportunity for, publicity around, understanding the work. And we felt that was important to do because we wanted to create not just a brand, but an opportunity to build partnerships, opportunity for persons to know what's going on. And as Daryl would have said, for a lot of persons doing work in gender equality, the absence of sometimes tools was noted. And we began working with a consultant as it relates to creating some infographics. And we pulled some thematic areas from out of the research that was done that might help support, local entities as it relates to the work that they're doing. And so for the 4 infographics, the thematic areas were youth. And we focused on youth because that was one of the areas that came out of the research in terms of their need for SRH services and supporting their access. And so an infographic is designed around that. Then we also pulled out a thematic area of gender-based violence and SRHR. And so we have some work being done there as well. And the other 2 areas that came out would have been working with LGBTQI persons and just trying to be relevant in terms of connecting all of that what's happening, COVID and SRHR. And so those 4 thematic areas were, opportunities for us to really bridge the gap between the heavy research that was done and making a connection so that we can share it to, grassroots persons, people who on the ground doing the work. And, just forming and forging strong and meaningful partnerships and supporting them because many of them would have been created just from doing the work and doing the research and in terms of the early stages of the project. And similarly, we created PSAs as well to support that work around the same 4 topics that I mentioned in terms of thematic areas, but also included a component around, CariMAN. And interestingly, that idea came out because, when you think about the Changemakers project in terms of us shooting in and perhaps shooting back out, it was important to forge the gap between, Changemakers, CariMAN as a regional body, so that persons might be able to hear a bit more about them, understand. And so we kind of included that component there in terms of a PSA, and that is in the mix in terms of, as I said before, we have someone who's consulted and working on that so that we can have that done. Importantly as well, in terms of partnership, is the resources that are available in terms of the UNFPA, a global body who's known for their work around SRH, and the ability for us to have partnered with them to also support in terms of the technical aspects of the creation of those tools. Because it's important for us to, have this information to be disseminated, but making sure that, that our partners are on board. And so that was one of the opportunities that presented itself, and perhaps the unintended benefit of the Changemaker process, in that we were able to forge that meaningful relationship there, so that we can, give and take as it relates to sharing, getting the support from them to create that technical, or to support us in that technical capacity to look through those PSAs to make sure using the youth advocacy movement, which is also helpful for us in terms of making sure we have youth participation. Then we have the 3rd work in progress, which is really around the dissemination of the toolkit, as Daryl would have spoken. It is a toolkit that we feel proud about because it really touches the practical aspects and application of the work, and is going to support a lot of the grassroots organizations. And we thought it would be a really good idea. And we have our colleague, as Tricia would have mentioned, who's not on the call, and he's spearheading the regional convening, where we're going to have, local partners, NGOs, civil societies, all coming together to talk about, how to first of all, to celebrate, because many of them would have already been involved in the research, and also to talk about, how we might be able to implement the toolkit on the grass level, discuss it, the key components of the toolkit, and make connections around, how they might be able to actually use it on the ground. And so we look forward to that. As I said, it's already in the pipeline, and it's going to be happening in the month of March. I'm going to now turn it back over to our colleague, Tricia, who's going to talk a bit about some of the other, the future works or the things to come.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Shakey. So back in 2019, when we all met in Addis Ababa, it was critical for us in the Caribbean to think about sustainability for the project. So since 2019, we began thinking, how can we sustain this project and make this project a living project for continuity even after the funds from the donor comes to an end. And after some critical thinking through this, we decided, because we have all of these materials for easy access to key stakeholders, we decided that in April of this year, we are planning to convene a regional policy meeting with key stakeholders, and the key stakeholders being policymakers, government officials, civil society organizations, etc., even donors as well, bringing everybody into one space where we can share and disseminate the desk review, with the hope that we can create a collective work plan or draft a collective statement for moving forward for the region at a policy level. It gives us the opportunity also to share the other all of the other work that we have been doing and we have done and completed over the last 2 years. So that is one of our major future upcomings, which actually will set a pathway for us and create a roadmap for at least the next 5 years, what we can do at the regional level as well. And secondly, we have learned so much from our colleagues in Bangladesh and even the rest of South Asia, even while we were meeting on a monthly basis. And it is from their experience we would have learned, we would have learned from their experiences and their challenges, their successes. And we decided that for us in the Caribbean, we wanted to also take a very similar approach to create and expand and create somewhat a Caribbean Changemakers platform. However, the platform would not just be focusing on SRHR. We plan to make sure that this platform that we're creating tackles all of the issues that fits on CariMAN's agenda. So all of the cross-cutting issues like gender-based violence, economic justice, climate justice, all of the issues, and centering it around Caribbean masculinities and Caribbean feminisms as well. This is in the pipeline. We're already starting to put this to life right now. So soon we're going to be issuing a call for Changemakers. However, our first batch of training under this project will be on SRHR, but it gives us an opportunity to use a Generation Equality Forum, which is upcoming, and all of the work is happening now as well. This gives us an opportunity to tackle all of the other issues as well with the Changemakers. And we did not mention it, but I guess it's also in the future, but part of this work, the knowledge platform, we are working right now with a web developer to create the knowledge platform on CariMAN's website. We'll be hosting it for us, and we will continue to share SRHR related materials, activities, events, etc. on that knowledge platform. So next slide. I think that's it. So yes, on behalf of the Caribbean Changemakers and our regional secretariat and chair for CariMAN, we really want to say thank you to MenEngage for the opportunity, and thank you for all of our colleagues from across the region for your continued support, your collaboration as we would have worked, and we hope that this continues to be a chain of communication that will continue even in the years to come. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Tricia, and everyone from the Caribbean. It's so inspiring to see kind of how much you've managed to do, kind of how you plan to continue the project. It's really encouraging to see that you have plans for the sustainability of the project, and also to kind of see this kind of cross-pollination of ideas amongst the change makers from different regions is really great. And yes, please do share the toolkit when it's ready. It sounds really great, and I can't wait to read it. So I do have some questions, but I think we'll move on, and then we can come back to some questions at the end. So I'd like to invite from Latin America, we have Hernando Hernandez and José Diaz that are going to present on what they've been up to in the Latin American region. And again, just give me 1 second on the presentation, but please go ahead.
Gracias. Buenos días a todas, a todos. Es un gusto estar aquí en representación de la región de América Latina, junto con mi compañero y amigo José Diaz de Colombia. El día de hoy queremos hablarles de la iniciativa que se desarrolló desde el año 2019 gracias al apoyo de MenEngage, en esta iniciativa pues, que se nos ha confiado. A la presentación le hemos denominado de una buena práctica a una experiencia promisoria. Queremos compartirles lo que se ha hecho y hacer un análisis crítico respecto al propio trabajo que hemos realizado, reconocer por qué lo que hemos hecho puede ser considerado una buena práctica y cómo aspira a ser una experiencia promisoria en América Latina, en el trabajo con hombres jóvenes desde las masculinidades y la perspectiva de género. Esta fue al final el título de la campaña para promover los derechos sexuales y reproductivos, hashtag Yo soy más que un molde, sexualidades sin machismo. Ahorita les platicamos cómo fue que llegamos a ese nombre, a esos colores y con esos personajes, que es una pieza comunicativa muy dirigida hacia las juventudes. ¿Okay? Decirles que en América Latina estamos estos agentes de cambio, Pamela Saavedra de Chile, el de La Voz de México, José Darío de Colombia, que está también por aquí, Patricia Piriz de Uruguay, Cesar Cordero de Costa Rica y Sofía de Perú. Y en nuestra coordinación regional, José Alfredo y Álvaro Campos, quienes también nos han acompañado de manera muy cercana en todo el proceso. La ruta del diálogo, queremos compartirles el panorama del proyecto, qué es lo que hemos hecho hasta el momento, desde mayo que nos conocimos en Addis Ababa, algunos resultados preliminares, pero sobre todo aprendizajes que hemos tenido en este viaje que hemos emprendido desde el 2019. ¿Es este proyecto una buena práctica? Es una pregunta que nos hemos hecho, una reflexión crítica respecto a respecto al propio desarrollo que hemos impulsado y cómo esta buena práctica la queremos convertir en una experiencia promisoria para la región de América Latina. El objetivo general de nuestro proyecto fue involucrar en la transformación de imaginarios patriarcales acerca de la salud sexual y los derechos sexuales y reproductivos a hombres y actores clave o actores estratégicos en los países de América Latina. Lo podemos ubicar en 3 fases. La primera, que se llevó a cabo en 2019, que al igual que el Caribe, se realizó un mapeo y un fortalecimiento al interior del grupo. Este mapeo lo hicimos a nivel de la región de América Latina, buscando reconocer qué experiencias tiene nuestra región, qué experiencias promisorias tiene nuestra región respecto al trabajo con hombres desde el enfoque de las masculinidades. Pero también cuáles son los avances en materia de derechos sexuales y reproductivos, por lo menos en los 6 países de América Latina. La segunda fase, que fue en 2020, ya con una pandemia global atravesada, fue una serie de encuentros con juventudes latinoamericanas para el diseño y lanzamiento de esta campaña que después se denominó Yo soy más que un molde. En la fase 3 es en la que nos encontramos en 2021, que estamos, como ya lo señalaron, en el cierre del proyecto, en la evaluación y el diseño de una propuesta pedagógica para darle continuidad y darle sostenibilidad en el tiempo al proyecto que impulsamos durante estos 2 años y 2 meses ya, ¿verdad? Ahora, en el mapeo, respecto a las acciones que se han emprendido en América Latina, primero nos encontramos con una región muy activa, con 30 años de historia, por lo menos, en el trabajo con varones, con experiencias de corte académico, investigaciones sobre derechos sexuales y reproductivos, también con diversos talleres, no todos sistematizados. Esto es una experiencia para América Latina, que a veces se emprenden diversas acciones, pero no hay un ejercicio propio de sistematización, lo cual hace que si una experiencia puede ser muy positiva, nos la perdamos porque no sabemos qué pasó, por no hacer el ejercicio de reflexión crítica, pero también de una sistematización. Entonces, en este primer mapeo participaron 42 organizaciones o personas que integran organizaciones o que hacen parte de instituciones de los diferentes estados de la región. 81 personas u organizaciones, o el 81% de las personas que participaron conocen al menos alguna experiencia de trabajo con hombres desde el enfoque de masculinidades y derechos sexuales y reproductivos. Sin embargo, solamente el 4.7% eran campañas de alcance local, es decir, en Chile o en Uruguay, y no tenían reconocimiento en otros países de América Latina. Quizá una de las experiencias más conocidas en toda la región fue la experiencia HMD, que fueron una serie de manuales para el trabajo con mujeres jóvenes, hombres jóvenes y con personas de la diversidad. 12% de las iniciativas eran dirigidas a varones jóvenes, es decir, específicamente a varones jóvenes, porque muchas de estas iniciativas iban para personas diversas, digamos, pero solamente el 12% se iban con este énfasis. Todas estas iniciativas tenían enfoque de masculinidades, derechos humanos y juventudes, y principalmente eran impulsadas por ONGs. Hay muy poca experiencia de los estados, de los gobiernos de la región para impulsar el trabajo con masculinidades. José, ¿usted quiere agregar algo en este punto?
No, Hernando, por el momento no.
Ok. Bien, otra de las cosas que nos parece importante destacar respecto a la región de América Latina es que en la segunda parte del mapeo, que fue la que hicimos en los 6 países, podemos encontrar que hay una serie de avances. Primero, que nuestros estados han firmado y ratificado instrumentos en materia de derechos humanos. Algunos se han traducido en leyes, por ejemplo, leyes para garantizar la identidad de género de las personas trans, como es el caso de Uruguay. Leyes para el matrimonio igualitario, como son diversos países de América Latina, para el matrimonio entre personas del mismo sexo. Para erradicar la discriminación por razones de género o de orientación sexual, hay en casi todos los países. También hay leyes sobre educación sexual integral, aunque a veces eso no se traduce en programas de educación sexual integral. Bueno, hemos visto la movilización del movimiento feminista en el Cono Sur, en Argentina particularmente, con la marea verde y la despenalización del aborto que se impulsó recientemente en la aprobación del Senado, por ejemplo. Entonces, bajo la consigna «Será ley», las compañeras han logrado impulsar esa ley en el sur, la despenalización en todo el país. Y servicios amigables de acceso por ejemplo, a preservativos, digamos, ¿no? Servicios amigables para juventudes latinoamericanas. También tuvimos un proceso de formación y fortalecimiento en Bogotá. No tuvimos un encuentro presencial antes de que todo esto ocurriera. En noviembre del 2019 pudimos encontrarnos en Bogotá en una capacitación con Católicas por el Derecho a Decidir sobre hacer advocacy, ¿no? Cómo hacer advocacy con perspectiva de género, y en este caso para nosotros fue importante reconocer cómo hacer advocacy desde el enfoque de las masculinidades en América Latina. En 2020 nos encontramos ante la emergencia de salud, de tener que ser creativas y creativos y de reinventarnos y de pensar cómo, de la planeación que habíamos hecho, que era una planeación presencial con grupos focales en cada país, con trabajo con juventudes de manera presencial, había que reinventarnos y pensar cómo hacer para involucrar a las juventudes latinoamericanas en este proyecto. De tal suerte que impulsamos 5 encuentros con jóvenes, donde participaron 77 chicos y chicas de 10 países de América Latina, de edades entre los 14 y 25 años de edad, a través de una metodología que incluyó que las chicas y chicos diseñaran piezas comunicativas, es decir, diseñaran la campaña desde las juventudes para las juventudes latinoamericanas. Creemos que una de las experiencias o de aprendizajes es que con frecuencia las campañas o las acciones son diseñadas desde el adultocentrismo, desde la idea de los adultos para las juventudes. Un aprendizaje importante fue: dejemos esto en manos de las juventudes para que puedan comunicarse con las y los jóvenes a través de los medios de comunicación que más usan, que en este caso como lo veremos más adelante, fue una campaña que se impulsó a través de Facebook y de Instagram. Aquí quiero dejarles un videíto, a ver si logramos que la traducción, ayer estuve haciendo ese trabajo en YouTube, me gustaría ver si logro que puedan leer la traducción de este video, que es el video, digamos, de la presentación de la campaña, de Yo soy más que un molde.
En un mundo donde los hombres vienen de un molde patriarcal, en el que todo lo que saben de sexo es por el no por, 3 personajes de hielo nos dicen: yo soy más que un molde. Norman es rudo y ha escuchado sobre otras formas de ser hombre, pero no le importan tanto como el tamaño de su pene. Si no reflexiona sobre sus comportamientos, puede convertirse en un riesgo para él y los demás. Explo conoce otras formas de ser hombre, pero hay días que piensa que eso no es para él. Si no reconoce los efectos de su humor machista, podría ser rechazado. Y Deco siempre está a favor de otras formas de ser hombre, pero aprovecha esto para ligar chicas. Si él no entiende que la deconstrucción no se presume, no podrá establecer relaciones justas y saludables. Ya están aquí para gritar: yo soy más que un molde. Sexualidades sin machismo.
Después de los retos creativos, donde las y los jóvenes diseñaron las piezas comunicativas, dejamos esto en manos de profesionales del diseño, de la publicidad y del marketing, que fue una empresa de Bogotá, Trineo TV, quienes en realidad hicieron el diseño gráfico y la animación. Pero los mensajes y la construcción, digamos, de estos fue a través de las juventudes. Entonces, la campaña se lanzó desde el 1 de diciembre, que fue el Día Mundial de la Lucha contra el SIDA, en los 16 días de activismo. Fueron 16 días muy intensos de estar promoviendo en redes sociales junto con el grupo que le llamamos Grupo Motor de Juventudes, que fue quien participó de manera muy activa en la difusión de esta campaña. Y también se generó un ebook que se llama así, y ahora estoy un poco preocupado por cómo lo van a escuchar los compañeros de la región de Asia del Sur, porque, bueno, hasta ahora lo estoy mirando de esta manera, ¿verdad? Las jóvenes y los jóvenes le pusieron así: Kama Sutra sin prejuicios. El Kama Sutra para las juventudes latinoamericanas es una invitación a pensar la sexualidad, aunque siempre era una sexualidad que tenía que ser oculta. En este sentido, fue que el Kama Sutra sin prejuicios es una propuesta gráfica de un ebook para leer sobre los derechos sexuales y reproductivos. Tiene diferentes poses sexuales no genitales, porque esta campaña está muy enfocada no solamente a los derechos sexuales y reproductivos en términos de la prevención del embarazo, por ejemplo, o de la prevención de las infecciones de transmisión sexual, sino también de la promoción del buen trato y el placer como un derecho humano. Ahora sí, estimado José, ¿qué hemos aprendido en este viaje?
Hola, ¿me escuchas?
Sí.
Listo. Pues básicamente nuestro viaje pensábamos que terminaba cuando volvimos de Etiopía, pero en Etiopía lo que hicieron fue darnos un tiquete para arrancar el viaje y la aventura que ha sido, digamos, este construir y este encuentro, pues, para involucrar a hombres en Latinoamérica en el marco de los derechos sexuales y reproductivos. En el marco, digamos, de este viaje, lo que hicimos fue abordar el vuelo. Estuvimos como planeando con vientos a favor y en contra, y ahora que pues vamos a aterrizar, estamos identificando los aprendizajes que son finalmente lo que queremos compartir con ustedes hoy. ¿Me escuchan bien? ¿Puedes darle un pasito a la diapo, Hernando? Ay, ¿por qué no se ve?
Se ve.
Pues, ¿sí? ¿Sí se ve?
Sí.
Perfecto. Entonces, en el desarrollo del proyecto entendimos que estuvimos trabajando desde un marco lógico que necesariamente planteaba una lectura de contexto y de realidades en pues en muchos países, y que finalmente ponían el foco en la necesidad de involucrar a hombres en derechos sexuales y reproductivos, a hombres jóvenes, y desde ahí se desarrolló nuestra teoría del cambio. Lo que propusimos desde ese sentido fue generar espacios de conversación relacionados con las juventudes en Latinoamérica, con unos niveles de participación y unas etapas del proyecto que dieran cuenta de una participación alta. En ese sentido, pues la idea era posicionar también el tema de los derechos sexuales y reproductivos, y en este contexto de la pandemia tuvimos que recurrir a las plataformas y a las redes sociales para poderlo comunicar, que finalmente digamos que excluye una parte de la población a la que queríamos llegar, porque no toda la población en los países en los que estamos cuenta, digamos, con acceso a internet, cuenta con equipos, y esto, digamos, que segmenta un poco el discurso y llega, digamos, a un grupo poblacional limitado. Digamos que fue un desafío en ese sentido plantearlo desde allí, pero esperamos que desde las lecciones aprendidas podamos generar nuevos ejercicios que en definitiva sí puedan dar cuenta de un trabajo de contacto, de un trabajo presencial, de un trabajo más acercado a los territorios y a las latitudes de los diferentes países. ¿Puedes pasarla, por favor? Listo. Entonces, una de las lecciones aprendidas es algo que generalmente no ubicamos cuando hablamos de los resultados de los proyectos, y es que ubicamos en un primer lugar lo que denominamos la potencia de los afectos, como un aporte significativo para un proyecto. Los proyectos se tejen más allá de lo presupuestado, se tejen por la confluencia y las coincidencias entre personas que tienen causas comunes y que finalmente tejen, digamos, ese tipo de relaciones que permiten lograr de mejor manera el desarrollo del proyecto. Entonces tejimos realmente un ejercicio de amistad entre el equipo de agentes de cambio, pero también un ejercicio de afecto con nuestro proyecto. Fue, digamos, algo que involucramos a nuestra cotidianidad, a nuestra vida, y que nos hizo sentirlo como nuestro también, y también lograr transmitirlo como suyo, digamos, para las personas que participaron. El segundo aprendizaje es el tema de las sinergias. Los procesos de trabajo para el cambio se fortalecen justamente a partir de esas sinergias, como efectos conjuntos. Entonces, nuestro equipo de trabajo pues tenía el espacio para la interdisciplinariedad, pero también un espacio para volcar el saber y el hacer, ¿sí? En definitiva, trajimos nuestra propia experiencia personal, la involucramos con la de los otros y las otras, y a partir de allí empezamos a generar, digamos, el proceso como tal del proyecto, cuestionando lo aprendido, pero también trabajando siempre desde la experiencia. Eso, digamos, que nos permitió llegar al tercer punto, ¿sí? Que el tercer punto es esas posibilidades de cuestionar el poder. Y es que en esas posibilidades, en ese trabajo para el cambio, fue posible que nuestros espacios con los jóvenes, en nuestros espacios desde el equipo promotor, fueran espacios que dieran posibilidades para la democracia, para democratizar el poder, para que la gente que participaba no se sintiera involucrada en el proceso, sino que se sintiera, el proceso, digamos, lo sintiera como suyo, en el aspecto de tomas de decisiones, en el aspecto de la creatividad, en el aspecto de las propuestas. Y allí también encontramos que esto también favoreció ese diálogo intercultural, ¿sí? Porque fue justamente lo que buscábamos desde el proyecto, era generar una conversación desde las diferentes miradas, desde los diferentes contextos situados y desde los modos distintos de hablar entre los jóvenes y las personas de Latinoamérica, desde esas diferentes posibilidades también de comprender el mundo, para lograr concretarlo en una campaña que diera cuenta justamente de un lenguaje común, que no, digamos, generara distancias, aunque las generó. De hecho, es un aspecto importante porque es medirse. Generó distancias pues con estos movimientos fundamentalistas y tradicionales que en definitiva ven en acciones como las que desarrollamos un cuestionamiento pues al orden establecido, y eso también nos permite decir que efectivamente el ejercicio, digamos, que sí tiene esa potencia. También fue posible sacudir lo adultocéntrico, que ya Hernando lo anticipaba, digamos, como una apuesta desde leer lo incorporado en el equipo, o sea, así como el patriarcado está incorporado en nuestros cuerpos, lo adultocéntrico también, y leerlo también a la luz de las personas participantes para, digamos, que volcarlo desde la reflexión, pero también desde la crítica a lo simbólico y problematizar lo que significa y la fuerza que tiene el invitar o el invitarnos a involucrar a los jóvenes, ¿sí? Entonces allí digamos que fue muy importante esto, y esto también le dio una mirada un poco sur al proceso también. La cuarta, digamos, aprendizaje que encontramos fue las posibilidades del co-crear como una apuesta metodológica. Siempre pensábamos cómo hacemos o cómo pensarnos lo metodológico que permita un nivel alto de participación de los otros y de las otras, y en definitiva lo que quisimos también fue desarrollar una metodología que respondiera a los desafíos y este contexto de pandemia, y se centrara en un contacto, pero un contacto que sorteara las distancias de estas redes sociales, ¿sí? La pérdida del contacto y la demanda que generó, digamos, esta pandemia. Entonces, allí comprendimos que el co-crear fue una línea principal en nuestro proyecto, porque desde el poder justamente dejar volar la imaginación, soñar, digamos, con posibilidades, permitió que convirtiéramos todo esto en objetos tangibles, como la campaña, como el resultado de nuestro proceso de sistematización y como el producto, digamos, que finalmente estamos terminando, que es el tema del desarrollo metodológico replicable también. Y por último, el quinto punto, que es que empezamos a reconocer qué tipo de experiencia fue la que desarrollamos. Entonces nos hicimos esta pregunta: ahora que terminamos, ahora que estamos aterrizando, ¿somos una experiencia promisoria o somos una buena práctica? ¿Sí? Y en el marco de esas experiencias promisorias encontramos que una experiencia promisoria a la luz, digamos, de un documento que salió en el 2018, que fue una lectura de diferentes procesos de países aquí en Latinoamérica que trabajan masculinidades, que identificó justamente experiencias provisorias en masculinidades, pero finalmente genera un aporte interesante, y es establecer los indicadores para mirar cuál es una experiencia provisoria, ¿sí? Entonces, nosotros encontramos que como buena práctica, de hecho, sí nos guiamos por principios, tuvimos objetivos, procedimientos, contamos con unos resultados medibles, en un contexto concreto, tuvimos un enfoque innovador, fue probado, estamos evaluándolo, y de una u otra manera le apuntamos como a la posibilidad de alcanzar otros propósitos en otros contextos. Sin embargo, una experiencia promisoria da cuenta de razones necesarias para concluir que esta experiencia tiene un potencial favorable para la región. Tiene que ver con que es una propuesta que desafía esos imaginarios de masculinidad hegemónica, promueve actitudes y comportamientos alineados con esa noción de las masculinidades, cualquier apellido que le queramos colocar, masculinidades no violentas, corresponsables, etc. Inquieta, cuestiona, desubica, digamos, lo hegemónico también, y de una u otra manera pues cumple unos criterios de selección que desde este análisis de las experiencias promisorias se relacionan con la legitimidad, como esa posibilidad de que la comunidad efectivamente reconozca que esta experiencia permite y tiene una importancia para el contexto, como la relevancia, porque justamente desnaturaliza imaginarios patriarcales, como la eficiencia, que es justamente esa capacidad de lograr unos cambios significativos, la sostenibilidad, que de una u otra manera estamos allí como tratando de pensar cómo continuamos en este vuelo, cómo hacemos una parada pues para tanquear el combustible necesario y continuamos con este ejercicio, digamos que sí es prometedor y necesario para la región. El cumplimiento también de compromisos internacionales, y es todo este marco internacional de los derechos sexuales y reproductivos, las posibilidades de transferencia también, como desde nuestra experiencia, desde lo vivido, podemos necesariamente concluir que esta experiencia se puede replicar en otros contextos, que pudimos identificar otros y otras agentes de cambio, y que en definitiva se necesita también reevaluar y comprender y tratar de potenciar esos nuevos liderazgos y las posibilidades de participación y apropiación. Y es esa posibilidad de lograr que las personas que participan de este proceso, que escuchan de este proceso, que reciben algún tipo de información de este proceso, se incorporen a él, lo hagan cuerpo y lo empiecen, digamos, a aterrizar a sus prácticas y a sus actitudes. Entonces, esas son unas cosillas ahí para contarles. Muy agradecidos también a nombre de nuestro equipo de agentes de cambio, también de las redes nacionales que representamos y las organizaciones a las que pertenecemos, agradecidos también de esta oportunidad y este bello y potente aprendizaje que hemos adquirido con todas y todas las personas que hacemos parte de este proceso.
Gracias, José. ¿Podría regresar a una diapositiva? Hay una que me parece importante aquí. Quiero compartirles esta también a las otras regiones para conocer su opinión y cómo lo han pensado ustedes. En inicios del 2020 hicimos un ejercicio de planeación a partir del enfoque del marco lógico del proyecto, con indicadores, con objetivos generales, específicos, con metas y actividades, que tiene mucho que ver con esta propuesta de la CEPAL, de cómo hacer una planeación estratégica. Pero tiene una visión muy lógica, muy racional, muy positivista y muy lineal de la vida social. Y a la luz del proceso de evaluación que estamos llevando a cabo, de pronto hacemos un ejercicio de revisión crítica de los objetivos que nos planteamos y vemos que algunos efectivamente fueron cumplidos, pero otros no, y sin embargo las intervenciones se fueron también por otro lado. Sabemos que es una guía la planeación, pero que de pronto no sé, nos dejó muchos aprendizajes. Por eso pongo acá la propuesta de teoría de cambio, que cito textual, se trata de un enfoque de pensamiento-acción para navegar en la complejidad de los procesos de cambio social, especialmente a la luz de lo que estamos viviendo a nivel global, de cómo los cambios sociales se nos presentan y es difícil poder a veces cumplir con una planeación así como lo propone de pronto, por ejemplo, el marco lógico del proyecto, ¿no? Una cosa importante que nos parece que queremos destacar es la importancia del trabajo entre hombres y mujeres en los espacios educativos. Es decir, hay una ola importante de la necesidad de hacer espacios separados, las mujeres reflexionando por un lado, los varones por otro, y creo que está costando mucho trabajo hacer ejercicios de encuentro entre hombres y mujeres para dialogar en torno al género, incluso en las masculinidades. Un aprendizaje que tuvimos es que este encuentro que tuvieron hombres y mujeres jóvenes de América Latina permitió construir esta propuesta. Entonces, si bien es cierto, es importante a veces hacer estas reflexiones por separado, creo que es importante seguir tejiendo estos puentes en los que nos encontremos hombres y mujeres para el diálogo. También el tema de los niveles de participación de las juventudes en las distintas etapas del proyecto, a partir de la escalera de la participación de la infancia de Roger Hart, porque nos preocupaba desde el inicio del proyecto, cuando nos encontramos en Bogotá, discutimos mucho sobre si corríamos el riesgo de hacer participar a los jóvenes y a las jóvenes, pero solamente de una manera simbólica. Es decir, como se suele a veces hacer en las instituciones, ¿no? Hacer uso de las juventudes para posicionar un tema, pero solamente como un medio y no como parte activa del grupo de organización. Entonces, ese ha sido como una de las búsquedas constantes que hemos tenido siempre como una guía de involucramiento de las juventudes en todos los procesos, en todas las partes, digamos, del proceso. Y bueno, el tema del posicionamiento de los derechos sexuales y reproductivos en Facebook y en Instagram, pero principalmente en Facebook, que tuvo una respuesta muy positiva de las mujeres. Las mujeres compartían mucho las piezas comunicativas, pero los jóvenes varones reaccionaban de manera hostil, abiertamente hostil, como le llama Ruth Funk en el continuum del compromiso de los varones con la justicia de género. Y ahí nos llama, sí lo quiero poner como una alerta porque sí vemos un incremento de una movilización juvenil, sobre todo de varones, en la era digital, donde hay mucha respuesta de enojo y de violencia, digamos, y eso también lo queremos colocar ahí para el análisis. Y bueno, eso sería todo de nuestra parte. Muchas gracias otra vez por la oportunidad y estamos muy contentos de escuchar a las otras regiones en su excelentísimo trabajo.
Thank you so much, Hernando and Jose. That was great. Thank you for your kind of level of reflection and evaluation of your project and of the experience that you had. It's so great to hear all those lessons learned. And I think, yeah, thank you for highlighting something that's come through all of the presentations, really, about the importance of kind of allowing young people to lead on these initiatives and moving away from the traditional kind of adult-centric notion that we have of developing these projects. I think it really shows as well in the campaign that you've developed. It really shows through that you've done that, and it's such a creative and kind of relevant to young people, the campaign. So thank you for that. So I want to encourage anyone who's listening to write some questions in the chat box. Please do that. But in the meantime, I want to just give you a little space to all of the change makers today to kind of respond to what each other has presented, to ask each other questions, and yeah, just to comment on what's been presented. Feel free to jump in, anyone.
I can go quickly. Sure. So not so much a question, but just, I think, to just compliment and appreciate. And, you know, Shakey used this word celebrate earlier. And I think it's really an opportunity for us in this space right now for us to celebrate each other and the work that we have been doing since 2019. And to just, so much has been said today. Everybody is doing incredible work, and especially in the local context as well, your national context as well. I think it's incredible. Some of which I myself didn't even know was happening. And I wanted to probably just start a conversation if we can, because there's a wealth of information here for us to learn from each other and build from each other. We know that this formalized project ends in March. So my question, I guess, would be, how can we, or have any of the other change makers began thinking, how can we keep this network of change makers moving forward? How can we keep it together as I'm hearing everybody's talking about expansion of change makers, etc. So how can we have you all began thinking about that? Or is it after March, we just kind of like go our own separate ways? Or do we want to still keep this network together? I think that's a really good start for us to have a discussion around that as well, collectively. As well, do we say goodbye after the end of March? So yeah, that's my question. Noting that the official funds will be over, but I'm hearing so many plans for expansion, change makers, training of change makers. So yeah, that's my question. And just to say thanks to everybody.
Would anyone like to respond to that question? Hernando.
es el punto de inflexión en el que nos encontramos en América Latina. Volviendo al tema de la participación desde la escalera de Hart, ¿de qué manera sostener a las juventudes que participaron en el diseño en lo subsecuente, incluso en la incorporación a nuestras redes regionales y locales? No solamente que participaron en este proyecto concreto, sino que, y eso lo escuché como una preocupación del Secretariado Global de MenEngage, deseamos que haya mayor participación de gente más joven. Y creo que este proyecto es una oportunidad para justamente involucrarles, que no solamente en el proyecto, sino en nuestras redes, que sean miembros activos de las redes locales de cada uno de nuestros países. Y hacia allá queremos encaminar el cierre de esta propuesta, digamos, ¿no? De involucrarles también en la evaluación, por ejemplo. Y creemos que involucrándoles en la evaluación y haciéndoles la invitación explícita a formar parte, a ser miembros activos de las redes, lo podemos lograr para darle sostenibilidad, además, ¿no? Eso a nivel local. Y de cómo sostener lo regional entre las regiones, ese es un trabajo más complejo.
Any other thoughts on kind of keeping the group together and sustaining the project? I'm not sure who's left from South Asia, but it would be great to hear from some of you on your thoughts. They might all be gone.
No, I think Dushama is still with us here, and Neeti too. You know, I see their names, so I think people are around.
Yes, I would like to say that seeing the presentation that from Latin America and also the Caribbean. So I would like to say that I'm actually very interesting to watch, and there is so many things to learn and study, and so I think if you can share the toolkits that you're going to say, you were saying that it would be very interesting to for our future advocacy plans and everything. And thank you for the great session for Latin America. Okay, that's it.
If I may, just to quickly, you know, we're not from the from the Global Secretariat. We're not close to pursuing, you know, possibilities for the sustainability. But it would be, you know, if there is interest on the part of you guys and the regions, we should get together and think what that would look like, you know, and what you would need and would like to do, and how we can turn that into, you know, an opportunity to approach some partner organizations and donors with you know, with something more concrete, you know. So that's let's just keep that on the table. We can do that.
Magali?
Yeah, Sohan?
Sohan, go ahead. Oh.
We cannot hear you, Sohan.
Shini?
Yes, please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Kind of.
We keep losing you.
I think Sohan is having some difficulties with his connection, so maybe we'll hope to get him back on in a minute. But I just wanted to add to what Magali said about continuing the project. Of course, MenEngage will continue to work on SRHR issues, but also we hope to continue to work with some of you through our work on youth leadership and engagement. I know that many of you have been involved in the work we've done over the last couple of years on that. And we've just launched a youth leadership and engagement strategy, which we're going to be implementing from this year. So I think this project has been so important in setting the foundations for that work, and kind of what Hernando was mentioning about the ability, because we've struggled in the past to kind of engage with young people, but through this project, you all have engaged so many young people and have come up with so many lessons on youth leadership and engagement. So kind of how to incorporate some of those young people that have been engaged through this project into the structures at regional level and at global level, so we can continue to strengthen our youth work. I think that's another really important outcome of the project. And we'll be sharing the youth strategy with you really soon, hopefully. Would anyone else like to comment, Magli?
Sohan, you seem to be back. Let's see if we can hear you if you want to say something.
Yes, I am sorry for the unstable internet. Can you hear me properly?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. So I want to share about sustainability. So we have built some cross-building partnership with Bangladeshi feminist group, and it's a research platform like ShareNet. And we joined the ICPD. So we also starting to holding government to account to implement plan of action as a youth group. So we developed our process document as a total model, how we mobilized a large number of young people and what our impact and outcome. So we also sharing our process document and our resources with other like-minded donor and collaborator. So we have getting some offer to continue this effort. So by this resource mobilization and our approaches, we will sustain our initiative beyond the SRHR for All project. Thank you.
Brilliant, thanks, Sohan. Would anyone else like to comment on kind of your plans going forward and how to continue to connect as an SRHR project? Maybe some of the others from Caribbean, maybe? Or not, or if anyone else has any questions or reactions to what the other regions have been presenting. No. Everyone's very quiet today.
You said you had some questions, Sinead, you personally, so feel free to also ask your questions.
Yeah, well, I think we've touched on it a bit, and obviously my angle is coming to it from the youth leadership angle, because that's the work I'm kind of leading in MenEngage at the moment. But I wanted to kind of ask all of the regions, because you've all had this focus on youth, what is it that you learned about youth leadership, and what advice you'd give to others kind of that are seeking to implement projects on SRHR and engage with young people?
No quiero abusar de la palabra, pero el silencio. En los 5 encuentros latinoamericanos, la primera vez que ocurrió, mezclamos edades, por ejemplo, chicos de 14 años con chicos de 24. Y una experiencia fue la necesidad de que este ejercicio intergeneracional complejizaba, porque los varones y mujeres que ya venían, que estudian alguna licenciatura, daban cátedra a los más pequeños, es decir, reproducían el adultocentrismo aún siendo muy jóvenes. Fue necesario hacer esta separación por edad y que los más chicos, de 14 a 16 años, trabajaran juntos, dialogando sobre la sexualidad, y los más grandes también lo hicieran. Lo segundo fue trabajar desde la experiencia personal porque hablaban mucho desde lo racional, desde lo que aprendían en la escuela, pero no hablaban de las experiencias. Entonces nos perdíamos de cuáles eran las realidades concretas de las personas jóvenes o adolescentes en la región. Entonces instamos mucho a que hablaran de las prácticas y de las experiencias concretas más que de la teoría sobre la educación sexual integral, ¿no? Y eso nos permitió acercarnos mucho a cuáles eran las principales tensiones y necesidades de las juventudes. Esa sería una aportación que quisiéramos hacer.
Great, thank you.
I think
Go ahead, Shakey.
As it relates to, I think, the Caribbean, I think one of the lessons that I would say I've learned around, engaging young people, but more so boys, has been, something that came from my engagement with a colleague not too long ago as we were working through some youth marginalization concepts. And as we were processing it, we were going head on, my entry point being, girls from an oppressive state. And I remember my colleague, her entry point was working with boys in the justice system. And she's emphasizing the need to also pay attention to boys and their oppression. And I remember it taking me back a bit because, my entry point has always been girls as a victim of sexual violence, girls as a victim. That's where the research is leading us. And there it is, she's saying, but when you think about boys in the juvenile justice system, there is something that we need to pay attention to. And so persons who might be engaging boys or young people within, populations that are sometimes alienated, put on the sideline, we must consider going through in terms of our interventions and really thinking about their oppression and their own unique areas of marginalization. And I think, as we spoke about it, it changed my lens a bit. It sharpened my lens around, yes, so we're creating a program for girls and we're able to think about them and their trauma. But as we're working with boys as well, also recognize for many of them, their trauma might be slightly different from the trauma of girls and women, but we have to take into account and consider that into our interventions. I mean, I know that does not speak as it relates to participation, but I'm speaking more towards persons who are creating the interventions, who are in those positions to really, consider and factor that when we're thinking about engaging them. And I just wanted to share that.
Thanks, Shakey. Really important point. Any other comments?
So I can go. Specifically for this project on around youth leadership, I agree with Hernando and Shakey, but I think to add specifically to this project around youth leadership, a group of change makers were given a huge responsibility to lead projects, and for some of us, it also meant managing funds on a different level. For some of us, it meant making decisions and just, having people accept those decisions as well, which I think can be scary, especially when you're working on a regional context and not national context. For instance, in Trinidad, for our region, the Caribbean, we chose the approach of doing regional work and not splitting it across just the 3 countries that we represent collectively. So that by itself is a scary process. And you ask, what is one thing that I would say, what is one thing we would say to people around youth leadership? I would say youth leadership means you're coming in with a couple things. One, you're coming in with a passion to work, but also with a commitment as well. And I think that is what this project really taught me, that commitment around advocacy and willing to call out people even senior to you and hold them accountable on a different level of accountability, especially when it comes to men and masculinities work. And I'm speaking in the Caribbean context around Caribbean masculinities and the male backlash as well, and building a collective effort to rally people, rally allies, pro-feminist allies. It is scary, very scary. But for me, it was a very welcoming experience, seeing that what Shakey, Daryl, Ajani, what we would have done And we probably would not have done a lot of youth engagement just yet in the project, but seeing the level and scope of work that we would have led from a big desk review, looking at that from in 2019 when we sat down and we started to brainstorm around that, looking at a big desk review and then how we can pull that desk review to get parts out from a desk review. That was a level of strategic planning and visioning. So yeah, we look forward to continuing the youth leadership but also transferring our own knowledge for a different level, for a different group of youth as well, and passing this down to them. I think it's a welcoming experience in a nutshell. Yeah.
Great, thanks for that, Tricia. Very frank comment. It is scary, and you've all stepped up to the challenge very well. So thank you. I think, Magali, did you have any comments or last words before we kind of wrap up?
Yeah, well, I always have some. I know. No, I think this is very exciting, and I wish we had more time. And more time, I mean, with the project, with everything. But I also want to also highlight that we are conducting an assessment of how this initiative, went, how productive it was, how, beneficial did or the gaps, what we could have done better, what we would like to do in the future. It's very open. So it's not meant to see like, oh, did you accomplish, X, Y, and goals, but, how did it go now, since it was an innovative approach. So Madhumita Das, whom you guys met in Ethiopia in 2019, will be conducting this assessment. And so that you all will have an opportunity. She will be contacting you and interviewing or sending a survey, or she's developing some mechanisms. And there will be room for more comments, for more interaction. And then we can also plan amongst ourselves to have another call or another meeting where we can, discuss more these issues that are coming up about, what you've learned, what you experienced, and how, what would be needed or useful moving forward if you all continue in some shape or form, or just to document, as putting together all the recommendations that came from the regions. So we let's not think that this is the last moment. And also because next week we will hear from our colleagues from the Africa region. So just bring it back when we talk again, these reflections, because I think they're important. Sinead, back to you.
Great, thank you, Magali. So yeah, I think the time has come to wrap up, but I just wanted to thank everyone for presenting today, and also for all of the amazing work you've done over the last few years. It's been really great getting to know you all and working with you. And yeah, we look forward to continue to staying engaged with you in whatever way makes sense, and hopefully get to meet each other again soon at some place in the world. So that's it from me. Thanks, everyone.